7:03, we'll call the meeting to order. I don't see a roll call on there, but let's go ahead and do a roll call. Vanessa, if you could.
Yes. Okay. Lee Warren.
Here.
Sean Emmerich.
Here.
Steve Reinhardt.
Yep.
Okay.
Here.
Bruce Carpenter. Brian Carroll had sent an email saying he wouldn't be here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Mike Morgan.
Here.
Dave Motley. Keisha Moulton.
Here.
Scott Regan.
Here.
That's your group.
All right, thank you very much. So, first off, I want to say welcome to all our new members. Please feel free at any time.
Lee,
we are free. Yeah.
You need to make a motion to either excuse or not excuse. Who is it, Vanessa? Who's not?
Brian Carroll.
Brian Carroll. He emailed us and told us he wouldn't be able to make it. So.
I haven't really got to that point, but we can do that.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
That's
I thought you were.
That's right. I guess I can put my stuff in item number 4.
Sorry.
So, all right. Entertain a motion to excuse the absence of the member who's not here today.
Make a motion. Second.
Motion by Sean. Heard second. Any discussion on that item?
Yep.
All in favor signify by saying aye or giving a thumbs up.
Aye.
Any opposed say no or a thumbs down. And we'll pass.
I'll shut up, Lee.
That's all right. That's all right. We'll just let housekeeping, Ms. Vanessa.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Just to go over a few things in housekeeping. If you are a member of the committee, we ask that you have your camera on and that you keep it on for the meeting. Just easier for everyone to see you that way. We ask that if you are not speaking, that you mute. If you're a committee member, you don't have to do that. It's just helpful with the background noise. As you may remember, or some of you may be new to this, there is, mine is up top, but it may be down low for you. It looks like a smiley face with a hand next to it. You can push that and it will give you the option to raise your hand if you want to speak on something. To the extent that you do that, do not forget to unraise it. Somebody will 100% forget to unraise it though, probably me. So remember that. We have actually disabled the chat for this meeting just to we've started to do that just that way we don't have any side conversations that aren't being recorded. If you need technical support help, you can email me directly. So it's either vanessa.burgess@trec.texas.gov or you can do general.counsel or tony.slagle. I will say that giving out Tony and mine's information as IT support is probably terrifying for everybody, but we'll do our best. And I think that's it. Like I said, you'll really want to have cameras on just for purposes of everybody seeing everyone, and when we do elections in a little bit. If anybody can't see everybody, you can go on there's like a ... next to the smiley face with the hand, and you can click on large gallery and that should show you everyone. I always think that's very helpful. I actually just did it as I was saying that, and now I can see a lot more folks. And that is it.
Thank you very much. All right, so now we'll move on. Remarks from the chair. Anyway, just wanted to wish everybody Happy New Year. Thank you for coming. I know we were hoping that this would be an in-person meeting, but thank you for being amicable to making this online per staff request. Wanted to welcome our new members, 2 public members. You may not know what you've gotten into, but we are absolutely glad that you're here. It adds a completely different perspective to get some people that are not inspectors or not directly related to this industry, their input on stuff. So please do not hesitate to give your input. We'll always be welcome. If you have questions, please ask, because there is a lot of information to assimilate, and we want to make sure that you have a good understanding of it. And please do not hesitate to ask. You can either do it in open, you can call or text any one of us. I believe you hopefully have been sent contact information for everybody on the committee. If not, Vanessa, if we can make sure that that gets done to all the new committee members, that would be great. Please feel free to reach out at any time and ask us any questions that you may have. With that, we'll go to item number 5, ratification of the minutes of the October 11th meeting. Are there any amendments or modifications to the minutes from anybody on the committee? All right, hearing none, those minutes will stand ratified. Item number 6, general comments from visitors on written comments on non-agenda items. Do we have any guests that would like to speak on an item that is not currently on the agenda? You can either speak up or raise your hand over there, and I will see it if you have your hand raised. And while we're waiting for that, Vanessa, did we have any written comments that we need to address? Okay.
You do. It looks like Amber's about to put it on the screen.
Okay. Okay. So they're asking for a requirement to check home heating system for carbon monoxide. It's very important and can save lives. Absolutely agree. They may not be aware that we are required to look for and notify as deficient if there aren't carbon monoxide detectors in a house. But we can certainly forward that to the SOP subcommittee for when that review starts and take a look at that. Anybody else have any comments on that?
So they're asking about CO detectors. Doesn't that take effect in 2 weeks?
No, I think what they're actually asking for is a requirement to check the HVAC for carbon monoxide.
Oh, got you. I remember looking at that.
So I think that's specifically what they're asking for, which unfortunately would require specialized equipment. I know there are some inspectors that do go above the standards and will test it with a sniffer and do that.
But I don't think, carbon, yeah. I mean, yeah, there are some programs that actually will sniff for more complete combustion in the exhaust, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can certainly forward that to SOP to have them, relook at that. I'm sure that we've looked at before, but it never hurts to look at it again. So any other comments, Vanessa, that we need to look at? Oh, okay, and seeing none there, we will move on to item number 7. Sorry, looking forward to item number 7. Item number 7, election of officers. So we will be electing a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. So we'll do these one at a time. And we'll start with the chair, and whomever gets the chair position will take over and do B and C, just to finish that out. So with that, I will open nominations for chair of the inspector committee for 2022.
This is Scott. I nominate Sean.
Nomination for Sean Emmerich.
I accept.
That reluctant smile I see.
Not sure what I'm getting myself into.
Are there any other nominations for chair? All right. With that, being that there's only one, do we have to have a vote, Vanessa?
Oh gosh. No, you do not.
Well,
I'm just trying to make sure our ducks in a row.
Yep, no vote. And Abby is confirming this, and she is my Robert's Rules of Order expert when it comes to elections. It is considered to be by consent, she has just told me. So no need to vote.
I didn't think so, but it's always good to check with the legal folks to make sure. So with that, Mr. Emmerich, it is all yours.
Lord. All right, thanks, Lee. All right, is my microphone working? Yep. Okay, so we'll move on to B. I just wanted to say thanks, Scott, for nominating me. Just a quick introduction, real quick, because I know there's some things that have been out there, but I know there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about, or there's been some talk about in the inspector community about a lot of the inspector committee members being realtors. I am a realtor, but I don't consider myself a realtor. I've had my license for 25 years. I was working for the fire department and I was looking for a side job. And so I thought about being a realtor. I've done maybe 6 transactions for family members in my lifetime. And I would not consider myself a good realtor. I'm not a I'm not against realtors, but I would consider myself an inspector. I've been inspecting actively for 22 years or so. So just wanted to get that out of the way. And I'm open, anybody that participated in the SOP committee knows that I'm open for anybody's opinion or suggestions. So just move on from that. So any nominations for the vice chair? Anyone?
Leslie Warren, I'll nominate Scott Reagan.
All right. Scott, do you accept?
I accept.
Any other nominations? Okay, so I guess, Scott, you have it by unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Secretary. Who is currently secretary?
Me.
Steven.
Steve is currently secretary.
Any nominations for secretary?
This is Scott. I say Steve again.
Oh,
Steve trying to draw a pension soon.
long, tedious work.
We'll give you a pay raise, Steve.
Okay.
Steve, you accept?
I do.
You do. Okay.
I think that's what we were taught to say when we get to the altar.
Yeah, exactly. Any other nominations? All right, Stephen, unopposed. Okay, that wraps up item number 7. Move on to item number 8. We're going to appoint some subcommittee members. So we've done some, I was thinking about doing some reshuffling. Lee has been on SOPs since I got on the committee, I think in 2017. So he's probably been exhausted of that. So I was going to see if Lee would chair the education committee, subcommittee, and then put Bruce, Mike Morgan, and Keisha on education subcommittee. So does that work for everyone? And Stephen, thank you for all the work you've done on education. I think all the committees kind of have done a bunch of work, and now we can kind of just move into cruise control or more of a maintaining everything we've established. So, and with that, with the SOP committee, I was going to ask Stephen to be on that committee. Scott, I was going to ask you to chair it. Dave Motley, and Brian Carroll. Does that cover everybody? Okay. All right, so there's no opposition to that. Everybody's good with those, and we'll move on from item number 8. Item number 9, report from subcommittees, education.
It just got on the darn thing. Can you cut me some slack?
Come on, you gotta completely report it. All right.
Go ahead, Steve.
Steven, you have anything to report?
No, I mean, we've kind of went to the new education standards, in March? Started March? But I think it's gone well. I haven't gotten any feedback that I know of as far as any kinks or things that were in the new standards for licensing, but that's kind of where we're usually at after making a big change like that, is just reacting, and I haven't seen anything.
And the real estate inspector's license is gone, correct?
No.
No?
No, it's not, Sean. We had filed legislation to do
Okay.
that, and
Okay.
it got to a point where it got moved over to the Senate and then it just died in the Senate committee. I don't really know why. There wasn't any opposition to it. We had the trade associations on board. Everybody was on board. It just didn't move on the Senate committee. Likely politics.
It's on a
Okay.
few of our bucket lists, but.
So there's still a clear-cut pathway for someone to become a real estate inspector.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the modules that we designed are available for. There's a module process to do education modules as well for real estate, as well as your traditional way to do it through sponsorship as well.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
this is Scott. Tony, are we going to reapply for that? Send it back through the Senate?
I would imagine so. I mean, it's the will of the committee where they want to recommend that to the commission and have it move forward. But I think the consensus in the industry is it would simplify things considerably. And it's not. And the people who are already real estate or who are existing real estate inspectors nothing would happen. They'd be grandfathered. They could still continue to do everything they could. But I think the consensus in the industry is it would simplify things tremendously to just have a one main inspector license, but I think there's also consensus to keep the apprenticeship alive as well. So,
Yes.
Okay, my other question is what about the recovery fund? Is that also died as well?
that was on the same. That was all part of the same, or it might have been a separate bill actually. Now I think about it, but yeah, that also both of those moved through the House without any opposition. They got over to the Senate side, got referred to a committee, and died in committee. They weren't even heard. Again, not really certain why that was. Outside of just there was a lot of stuff going on. It was a weird session, and so they didn't move. But again, if that's the will of the committee to move that recommendation to the commission will weigh it and decide whether or not they want to move forward and recommend that legislative change.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, education? SOP, we have not met since the last meeting. Nothing to report or update on that. Any comments on any SOP stuff that's going on out there? Okay. All right. Item number 10, staff reports, executive division.
I will happily deliver that. Chelsea wasn't able to make the meeting today, so it'll be up to me. It's Tony Slagle, Deputy Executive Director. Trying to give myself a promotion. Deputy Executive Director. I just want to take a moment and just welcome Keisha Moulton, the new public member, who we appreciate your willingness to serve. And Dave Motley was reappointed. Lee mentioned both of those. I just wanted to give them another shout out. Appreciate both of you guys' willingness to serve on the committee. Dave, you're old hat, so obviously if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But Keisha, I'm sort of the liaison here, the staff liaison for the committee. So if you have any issues or any questions, you feel free to reach out to me. I know you've already talked with Amber, so she's also a good source of info. But I briefly just want to talk about our return to work. We were hoping to have everybody back, well, not back in the office. We have a scheduled return to work as of beginning of January, but obviously the Omicron variant has changed things a little bit. So we are essentially reevaluating things week to week to see where we are on that. January, everything was remote, including this meeting. There's hope that we can get back to some in-person meetings in February, depending on what's going on. That's the goal right now. So the commission meeting right now is scheduled to be in person, but hopefully things are better, but you never know, that may change. But just wanted to let you guys know that we are working towards getting staff in on some sort of remote work schedule. They'll be in to the office part of the time and working remotely the other part of the time. The other thing I want to talk about was the SOP Pocket Edition. Mike Malloy and I were initially scheduled to be at the TREIC conference in College Station this past weekend, and unfortunately we had to cancel that. But one of the things we were going to do was going to be answering questions about the new SOPs and hopefully have some copies of the book, the pocket edition, which now has a lovely green cover once it's going to be published. So a couple of things. This is not yet ready. It will be hopefully by next week. If not by the end of this week, we'll get some in stock. We're working on an order form that we're going to publish on the website so that inspectors who want a copy of it can just fill it out and email it to us, and then we can mail them copies at no cost. We are going to limit the number that we ship out per order just to make sure that we can spread the wealth. But we're also looking at possibly not a PDF of the book, but a simple PDF version of the SOPs that somebody could print out if they wanted to. There is right now a link to that. It's watermarked with the effective date on it, but there's a link to that on the website if for anybody who wants it. But again, hopefully this will be ready to go by next week, and we'll have an announcement and have a link to how you get the form to fill it out and submit it to us so that we can ship them off to people. Let's see what else. We talked briefly, it was mentioned briefly before the meeting about some questions about the form. So we will put an article out on the website that specifies what an inspector can and can't do with the new form once it's mandatory as of February 1st. And I think that's all that I have to report, unless Vanessa can think of anything else that I need to mention. Congratulations, by the way, Sean and Scott and Steve. All right. That is all.
Question. Oh.
Who had a question?
I had a question. I didn't know if this was the appropriate place, talking about some of that. Mr. Tony, what is the latest on the temporary allowance for the practicums being done still by the student sitting at home and watching FaceTime with somebody doing an inspection?
Well, Jen, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, they're going in class. All our kids, we drop off our kids in school and then we go home to watch somebody do an inspection.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, we have not made any policy change to the current allowance for the virtual practicum, as long as everything is live and in real time and face-to-face and audio. But I think, you know, we've considered it, I think, at every inspector committee meeting that we've had. And at one point we were leaning toward, you know, ending that allowance, and then we saw a surge. And so I think the consensus was to continue to allow it. But I'm open to, you know, ultimately I don't know that it's my decision as to whether we continue it or not. I certainly can have some input, but I think this committee can have some input. And then again, you know, Tony and Vanessa, I think, you know, I think the biggest concern is just risk.
If I can just piggyback on that, Steve, what you said about kids going to school, you were right. Kids are going to school, but the main factor is that there's no other alternative for kids going to school.
Well, and I mean, I don't know that, I don't know if everybody agrees this may never go away completely. It's something we're always dealing with. And at what point, I mean, we all go to HEB. It's not like we're isolating. And the practicum is not like it's a convention where there's 300 people. There's usually one-on-one, maybe one-on-two. So the risk is relatively low. And all the work we did in getting a semi-apprenticeship in the kind of core training, just now we're back to where they can get a license and have never done an inspection.
Well, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you, the fact that we need the whole purpose of the practicum, but there's also the issue
the idea that they go to school you know, say at one of the schools in Round Rock or Austin, and then from there, the instructor goes to a house and the student leaves the school and goes home to watch.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen. Is it required that the practicum be virtual, or is it just an option?
No, it's an option.
It's an option. So yeah, that's the thing, Steve. It's not required that they do it virtually. It's an option. So the option is there because otherwise people who may not feel comfortable because of what's going on with the current surge would be forced to go sit to do it in person. And you know, that's the thought process behind that. It's not a requirement that it's virtually. Go ahead, Jen.
You can still social distance with two of you in a house going around.
If I may, I was just kindly reminded by one of my team members. One of the other concerns was on the part of the homeowner. Didn't necessarily want a number of, you know, human bodies in their home.
Lee, you got your hand up. Lee's got his hand up.
Yeah, I think number one, I agree. I think the virtual needs to go away. I think there was a time for that allowance, and it probably needs to go away. However, I also don't want to violate possibly the Open Meetings Act, and because this technically is not on our agenda, I would recommend that we have this as a future agenda item for our next meeting, because I think that'll solve two problems. One, it'll keep us from being in violation of the Open Meetings Act, and two, it will allot 3 months of time for hopefully this quote unquote variant to settle down, and we can possibly make a better informed decision.
Good job, Lee. I would have never picked up on that. All right, so we'll put that for future agenda items to consider. And it could be something education could look into also, alternatives. Okay, any other questions for Tony? All right, we'll move to B, TREIC Enforcement Division.
Good morning. Michael Malloy, Director of Enforcement. Just a couple items since there's for new members. As you realize, as most people know, we send out these orders. So the new members, if you get an agreed order via email from the commission, it's part of our policy that we send out these to all the inspector committee members, basically simultaneously when we post it online. So at least the inspectors and the members are aware that discipline has been administered against an inspector. So if you get those emails, it's not an error. You can review them as you wish. If you have questions, you're always free to email me or Tony Renteria, who handles a large majority of the cases. So this report's basically been the same for several years. The first page is the number of discipline that we did in the past year. And we just did since we last met, excuse me, which has just been one agreed order. And then the next page is the accumulation of since the start of the fiscal year, which started in September of 2021. Is there any questions?
We got Scott Kestner.
Good morning, Michael. I've got one question on the agreed orders. I love when y'all require education. How is the time frame established for that as far as how long they have to get the education? Is that part of the agreed order? I noticed one was executed on the 15th of November and they need 16 hours by the end of January. Is that feasible? Is education readily available? And I'm speaking from a layman's position, so just curious.
Yeah, I mean, we worked with the person that's signing the order, and we do like 60, 90 days. I mean, they can always come back and ask us if they need a slight extension if they've run into some issues, but we would rather them get it done sooner than later. So it's, so they can wrap up their disciplinary package, so to speak. I haven't had a request to extend the deadline in quite some time. We were extending them much more, like during the lockdowns and stuff, because they knew there was schools that were shut down and stuff. But now that all that stuff is open back up, we haven't had any issues with people being unable to get that additional education as per the orders.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and enforcement has done a great job of communicating. Anytime there's any kind of questions, I know Tony reaches out a lot. So I think the emailing the orders out in advance of the meetings and then communicating with us has been working really well.
Yeah, the policy that we set up, I think, yeah, I would agree, Sean.
Yeah.
Good, so.
All right. Any other questions? Nope. All right, education. Examinations.
Good morning again, everyone. Jennifer Wheeler, Director of Education and Exams. The first report before you reflects monthly and fiscal year-to-date data regarding qualifying education providers and courses. Those applications received, and then toward the bottom, you see those that have been approved. Inspector courses are are highlighted there. They're the third in each category. So, you know, not a real high volume here, but we just went through the process of approving all the new education for all of our education providers several months ago. So we probably won't see a high volume of this in this category for a little while. And if there are no questions, the second report, or I'll entertain any questions. No.
Nope.
Okay. So the second report is the same parameters, but for continuing education providers and courses. So all continuing education providers are allowed to offer both real estate and inspector continuing education. So the provider applications are inclusive there. And then you'll see that we've had pretty steady inspector CE course submissions, and equally toward the bottom, approvals as well. And I wanted to just say a couple of things. We have one new qualifying education provider, so that brings us to a total of 9 that have been approved. At least 8 of those have been approved to offer all of the pre-licensing education. There's the newest one that is in the process of obtaining approval for the pre-licensing coursework. Wanted to let you know also that we have 15 providers, which is higher than we've had in the past, approved to offer the new SOP Legal and Ethics update course. So that's pretty exciting. We have a lot of variety in terms of delivery method, both classroom, distance education, and even a handful of correspondence. And before you ask, updates to the SOP Legal and Ethics update course manual, the instructor manual, are in progress, and we will be ready to send those instructor manuals to the education providers who have been approved to offer the course within about a week or so. And then, of course, on February 1st, we'll post the new student manual to the website. And that's inclusive of all the revisions to the SOPs. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. I was just going to give some information out of the 9 providers, and I have most of my, I say family, most of my employees are ex-military going through training. Just a word that of the 9, none of those are VA approved. I mean, it's done from those schools, but just to let you know, as far as I know, none of them have applied for VA, which is really kind of sad. They never renewed their approval into the VA training program.
Huh.
I mean, nothing TREIC can do about it.
Yeah.
But if you have people, if you have, you know, vets that are getting out and wanting to train as a home inspector, maybe trying to get some of these schools to reapply and get approved with VA would be really nice. That's as of last week. Called every one of them.
Wow. Okay.
They just said it was too much paperwork with the VA. Go figure.
Yeah.
But an opportunity for some of them. But good. I'm glad to see we're getting back going there.
All right.
Just
Any other
briefly, if
questions
I
or
could,
comments? Go ahead.
this is Roy with Champion School of Real Estate.
Yes, sir.
Steve is right. We don't currently offer that through the VA, but however, we do have a 25% off of our prices for any VA or any veterans. So,
Yes, and that's beneficial, yes.
All right.
Okay. Thank
Anything
you all.
else? Thank you, Jennifer. All right, licensing.
Good morning, Denise Sample, Director of Licensing. The first report is applications received and renewal activity for inspectors. This is through November of 2021, and it's a fiscal year to date comparison of the same time frame of the previous fiscal year. You will note that overall the inspector applications are down a little over 25%, but as a reminder, this time last year we were seeing an incredible number of applications coming in, ahead of, well, we were still dealing with applications coming in with the new requirements changing. So this is, I guess, to be expected compared to last year. No, I don't have any other information other than, we continue to monitor this month by month and compare it to last year. And just, the sheer number of applications that we got last year was tremendous. So we were expecting a dip in this reporting period. Let's see, the next report is license holder and registrant status, and the inspectors are in the center of this report as well. These are the total numbers of active and inactive licensed inspectors across all the ranks, and those numbers are still, increasing slightly, kind of holding steady there. The next page, kind of center left, shows the graphical presentation of those numbers. And this is a 13-month comparison. So out of the record number of applications, we're still issuing a lot of those. Those applications are valid for 1 year. And so, we'll continue monitoring those month by month as well. The last report is the average number of calendar days to process an application. And again, if the focus is in the center there with the inspector numbers, you'll see the average number of days for professional real estate and apprentice inspector, and that's also as of November. This doesn't take into account any time that we're waiting on the applicant to pass the exam or get fingerprinted or return any requested additional information back to us. This only counts the amount of time that the licensing staff is reviewing the documentation that's submitted with an application. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Nope. All right. Thank you, Lyson. All right. Item number 11, discussion and possible action regarding a new form and process for submitting inspector experience logs. I think that's Denise.
Yep, me again. So we incorporated a lot of the changes that were discussed at the last committee meeting. There was discussion of, separating it out to make it clear that this form doesn't have to be used to submit proof of inspections. So there is information there near the top that says, log inspections below or use this form as a cover sheet. As we discussed at the last meeting, use of this form isn't required at all, not even as a cover sheet. So we're trying to convey information that, trying to make it clear what it is we're looking for, whether you're turning in a spreadsheet from whatever software the inspectors are using, or if you want to use this form and write see attached and include everything else after. So I do believe we captured all of the changes from the last time you guys reviewed this form, but we're open to any feedback you guys might have about it.
I think it's good. It seems clear that, we can use some of our software to print out a database of the information required, and then we add it as a supplement to the header information of what we're asking. And that's kind of what we've been wanting to do for a while. Seems like that'll work.
Yeah,
Looks good.
it's good. Anything else? All right. All right, thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
All right, item number 12, discussion and possible action regarding AFCIs as they relate to standards of practice. And we weren't sure if this gentleman that made the comment was going to attend today or not. Is John Friesen on the call? I looked at this email. I pulled up the SOPs and the ICC. I can't find. I'm not sure exactly what motivated this or any background on it. I can't find any problem with it. Stephen, you had a hand up?
I read this a few times, and I get the opinion that his contention here is the fact that we note the absence of AFCIs, like in our standard, as a defect. And he's coming from an electrician side. He's probably like, well, those are grandfathered, and it's true. Right. The NEC does not go back and say you have to retrofit your houses as the code changes. And right. I don't think that's our intent. Our intent is to inform the buyer that you do not have the same protection in this 30-year-old house as this 3-year-old house.
Right.
And it's always been kind of that confusion in the report, where those OP1 things are more intended to inform the client that how the house they're looking at compares to a new one, not that anything broke. And I think he's got the idea that we're saying it broke because it's broken because it didn't have them when this house was built. I mean, that kind of what you get out of it?
Yeah, that's what I got out of it. He's got the impression that we're telling people that they have to do this, that we're mandating these repairs. And I think it's a challenge for electricians to install AFCIs on an older home. And so I think he's getting out there saying, this is not necessary. Scott, you got your hand up?
Yeah, if you actually read our preamble, the first sentence actually states this is that if your home may have a deficiency that is in current code, but it was not required when the house was built. It's in our report stating that.
Yeah.
So
but
this is
not differentiated between what broke and what, kind of like when I know we've all been there when we make a note of like a electrical panel behind all the clothes in the closet.
Yeah.
It didn't break. This is it's the way it's always been, but to know that there's a reason why we don't do it anymore. And it's, there's an education opportunity with the inspector to explain the difference between what is not performing and what is a kind of an educational opportunity that this is not the way it was or way it is now, but that's the way they did it, but it is a hazard.
Yeah. Lee?
Well, this is something we went through, when GFCIs went into place. I mean, it's the same type of stuff where we're not, and we went through this with AFCIs before when we tried to put AFCIs in, in the first time, and it got backed out because people were getting too confused. The fact is, it's going to be an educational opportunity for every inspector out there to really educate the client that, hey, these things weren't required until like 2000, 2003, and, in the bedrooms, and started from there. So it's going to be a little rough to start off. Fortunately, hopefully, electricians will come and follow up and tell people, hey, this is what really is going on if somebody doesn't give that explanation. But they've been in the standards, they've been in the codes for 20 years. It's time for these to be back in the standards. It needs to happen. But we just got to educate our people better.
Yeah, we've been writing them up for 5 years in our reports, and we don't get much kickback on it. So Shannon Gatewood.
Yes, sir. I think all the committee members that have already spoken on it kind of answered what I was going to say too. But reading the email, the large paragraph currently the TREIC is defining it. At the end of that, it almost sounds like his main concern is electrical contractors preying on misinformed clients of ours. When we just put in there that says AFCIs are missing, and they're coming in here saying, oh yeah, we have to update everything now, rather than, so I think the point was us as inspectors doing a little bit more thorough job of explaining they're not required because this house is 20 years old or whatever. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is Tony real quick, Sean. I also think part of the problem for people who aren't inspectors is understanding that deficiency is defined a certain way for the SOPs, and it doesn't necessarily mean what an electrician might think deficient means. There's a safety standard. There's all sorts of stuff that's incorporated in that definition. So without knowing that, I think this is a fairly easy mistake to make without understanding the context of it.
Yeah. Has anybody talked to him? We just got this email. That's it.
Last year.
Okay. Tony, you haven't heard from him or anything?
I have not. I don't know if Vanessa or General Counsel's talked to him. I know there was some communication, but I don't know if it was via email. It was likely via email. I don't know.
It was via email. And so, he emailed, I wrote him back. He said he was going to try and attend, as I recall. And then I reached back out to him. I hadn't heard from him. I think I reached back out to him a couple of times. But we can circle back with him, certainly.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile just to send an email back kind of explaining where he's misunderstanding what the term deficient is. It's not that inspectors are calling that out as, they're doing it because of what the definition of deficient for the SOPs are. That's why it's a defined term, right?
Yeah.
We may want to invite him to the next SOP meeting if he wants to address that in a little more detail.
Okay, that's a good point, Lee.
Scott, why don't you call him and invite him to your meeting?
Thanks. I'll email him.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, if he desires to attend in the future, then we'll follow it back up then. All right. Item 13, discussion of possible action to clarify 22-535-222. I think this is Lee. Inspection reports.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. That Vanessa started to say something. Okay. Just this one kind of came back up. That I did. Mike Malloy and we were talking about this in a separate meeting, and I think it just goes. I think the thought process is the way that it's technically worded. It says that it's 2 days from the date of payment or other written agreement by the client. What the downfall is, if you're scheduled to do the inspection on Friday and you pay it on Monday, where's the written agreement that the inspection is going to be done on Friday? In essence, I mean, now the report could be due right then and there on Wednesday before you do the inspection, or say you pay for it on Wednesday, the inspection's on Friday, that type of stuff. So it was one a little wordsmithing we could possibly do in that little rule, just to kind of eliminate any little goofy question. That was really
that's a good point, because a lot of times people pay several days in advance, and
unless your report specifically says I'm not sending it 2 days until after the inspection, which in your inspection agreement, if you're sending it out, if they pay on Wednesday for your inspection on Friday, then technically 2 days after you get payment for it, you have to deliver it on that day. You don't get that 2 day window anymore.
Yeah. Stephen?
Tony probably remembers we talked about that when we brought this rule up, and there was, I kind of had the literal concern in reading it also, but the fact that everything since 2004 for me has been prepaid, sometimes a week or two. And the idea that it's due 2 days after payment, and the discussion at the table I kind of remember was, okay, it's 2 days from a receipt of payment, but you can't do it until you do the inspection anyway. So the question is, because we mulled around 2 days from the date of receipt of payment or the inspection might be what you were looking at, but this is the way it came out.
Yeah, Steve, I think the reason why is that it gave some flexibility with that agreed in writing, so that the inspector could have something based on, depending on what the circumstances are in writing to determine that. I'm not opposed to clarifying this at all. I'm just saying that I think that's what where that came down on, was the fact that that there's that ability for the inspector to say it whenever they are getting paid in advance, to say, okay, this the inspection report will not be delivered until after I've conducted the inspection or whatever.
Well, I mean, all we have to do is add a little blurb in that rule that says prepare a written inspection, or deliver the report to client within 2 days of receipt of payment or the date of the inspection, whichever is later, unless otherwise agreed to in writing. I think that would
that would kind of mean it's due the day of the inspection, and I didn't. That was the question that came up: is
no.
They prepaid, I do it. Do I still have 2 days to give it to them?
No. Not if you word it that. What I'm
whichever
saying
is latest.
Whichever is latest. So it's 2 days from either or, the date of the inspection or the payment, whichever is later. I think that would clear that up and fix that intent issue.
I agree. Scott, you got your hand up?
I do believe I remember that Steve in the meeting and staff and legal came up with this wording, and that way when we said in writing by a client is in your inspection agreement, you would put the wording in there, and they're agreeing to either paying it and receiving it or receiving it 2 days after the time. I see what you're saying, Lee, but there was another way that I think other people can misinterpret what you're trying to ask as well. Is when you say in writing by the client, and the client signing your agreement, it's in your agreement. I get the same question. I tell everybody, well, put it in your agreement that way, because when they're signing it, and I think Tony and Taria brought it up as saying that is approved in that direction.
But the agreement is not required to be signed before the inspection is done.
Some people don't even have one.
Very true.
I like doing what Lee's saying, is just modifying this, because every time you change your agreement, you really need to let your insurance know. You got to get an attorney to sign off on it. You have multiple inspection types and multiple agreements. I would rather just address it here, and then we don't have to worry about all the emails that go out, all the agreements that we have. Clarifying.
Is it hard to change a rule versus maybe just an explanation of her intent by staff or something?
It's always easier to provide explanation, because it's a process by which it's not that difficult. It's just a long process. You would propose a rule change, and then it would need to go to the commission. The commission then decides whether or not they want to move forward with it. And if they do, then it's open for comment, and then it goes through the adoption period as well. So this change wouldn't come into effect if it was proposed at the February meeting until sometime May, June at the earliest. I'm sorry, go ahead, Vanessa.
No, we're going to open 535 up in May, so I probably wouldn't want to do it until then.
Whereas the other thing you could do is just explain, again, it could be part of this, and I'm not trying to dissuade you either way, but you could, in the meantime, even explain in this article that we need to do for when the form is mandatory, and everything, we could just explain that for this rule as well.
I do think if you guys want to make the recommendation for a rule change, though, you can make that recommendation. What I was trying to say is, so we're going to open up chapter 535 in May for
rule review.
Quadrennial rule review. And so I wouldn't want to do it until then, because if we open it now, it gets complicated. It's better to just do it all at once. But if that's a recommendation that the group wants to make, we could certainly go forward with that. We would just do it at the May meeting.
Okay. So
Yeah.
could we propose verbiage in the May meeting and then open it up and move through the process after that?
Well, and staff could, I mean, it's adding those two words is simple enough, but I also want to make sure that we've kind of thought through if there are any issues. Why? I mean, it seems odd that if that was recommended before that wasn't implemented. So I'm wondering if there's something we're not thinking about part of that conversation. So I just want to make sure that we've dotted all of our I's and crossed our T's on that as well. But yeah, easy enough to move forward on. Not that this matters for this decision, but I'm just letting you guys know. Typically, this booklet that I do contains 535, 222 in it. I think what I'll do is just when we publish it right now, it'll just be the SOPs, and then once this 535 is adopted, we can do another run and include that rule once it's fixed.
Okay.
And- Sorry, I just want to clarify. So we're actually opening it. It's like a whole thing. We're going to open it up in May, which means it won't go for proposal until August.
Okay.
Just,
But
that doesn't preclude the recommendation.
Right.
That whole chapter, time, I think the timing will work, but that will, like that whole chapter is going to go before you guys anyways, just to take a look at the changes that we're making, et cetera. So that'll be that interactive process with this group as well.
And
Okay.
it's like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vanessa, if they did move forward, it's not likely that any significant changes to this rule would, I mean, if we were to open it up, let's say, and move it forward, I'm just saying if they did that outside of the rule review process, this rule would just not be likely not part of that, like any significant changes as part of that rule review, right?
Right. We're not anticipating significant changes overall. But something like this, I think, fits in just fine. Seems clarifying.
Mike Malloy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say that, I mean, I think a lot of us remember this was done basically because there was concern out there where people weren't getting paid and they had to deliver the report within 3 days.
Yeah.
This is not, we have not gotten complaints on people not delivering the report immediately because of whatever straight-laced interpretation you can make of this.
Right.
So whatever direction you guys want to go is fine, but I just wanted you guys to know that. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, I mean, that was the main driving force is people wanted to make sure they got paid. So
yeah,
Lee,
I mean, that's common sense. Yeah, they should. So
Lee.
Yeah, I don't think this is extremely time sensitive that we have to do it now. If they're opening up 35 in May, I think it's fine to do it there as long as we make a notation. I think this needs to be clarified just because I think there's a possibility that somebody could read this and interpret it a different way than what was intended. Of course, we as inspectors look at it, go, of course, we're not going to have the report, before the inspection's done. But I can see it coming where somebody says, well, I paid you 2 days ago. You have to have it by today, even though you just did the inspection today. I don't think it's extremely time sensitive, but I think if we put it in this, as we're opening up 535, I think this is something to put on the checklist that we should probably go ahead and.
Yeah. I think it fits in perfect in that May. Shannon, Gatewood?
I think it would be a nice feel good to have enforcement let us know that if somebody was to submit a complaint because we did not give it to the client within 48 hours after the actual inspection, that they would just tell them to kick rocks.
yeah, I mean, we would look at harm of the consumer on this, and the intent when this was drafted, and I was around then, was, get the payment and you got 2 days to do it. And common sense says you got 2 days from the date you do the inspection, not immediately. No. So
right.
Yeah, I just wanted to ease everybody's that from you guys' side. Appreciate it.
Yeah, since we're opening it up in May, I think it's a good time just to do some clarification, but yeah. So, all right, so we'll put that. Any other comments on that discussion? Stephen? You're muted. Stephen, you're muted.
I know. Sorry about that. So it wasn't on that line, it was on the next one. I just want to make sure I'm clear because I had a couple of questions put to me on the next one where we're talking all the names on the report, and I hadn't realized the way it's worded. So I have, like a lot of people on here, I have apprentices and I have other professional. So if you go do an inspection with apprentice and a supervising real estate inspector, say they go out with one of my guys, it also says the sponsoring inspector goes. So I would have my name on the report even though I was not there. Is that true?
Yes.
Because I always thought the idea was, you know, the first line, it says the inspectors who participated, and I tell you, I've been doing it a long time, as well as the names of the supervising, which they're going to be there. And then the sponsoring one, that's the one I hadn't caught. And that's the idea. So
on the report template, though, you know, it has the name of the inspector, and then below that, it has a link, item, a line for the sponsoring inspector, if applicable. So yours would go there all the time, and then anybody else that was on there would be listed down in the general comments.
And the general comments. So I've got an apprentice, just making clear, I've got an apprentice on a job site, and I've got a real estate inspector supervising him, not his sponsor, one of my real estate inspectors. Their two names always went on it. I didn't realize, I hadn't really read it, that I need to have my name on there also, even though I wasn't there, because I'm the sponsor. So I'd have all three names, even though there's only two people that went.
Yeah, as the sponsor, you have to put your name on that report, even though you didn't participate, because you are the responsible party for that apprentice.
And there isn't, I mean, it's just obvious that the other name is the supervising inspector. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I just hadn't noticed that. I didn't know how many
supervising inspector be a real estate inspector? I thought they had to be professional.
Nope.
No,
Licensed. That's it.
Yeah, this was a part of a conversation before. No, the rule allows a real estate inspector to supervise an apprentice.
Right.
It may not count towards.
They can't sponsor, but they can supervise. Yeah, and I forget the details about whether it counts towards experience hours or not, but they can definitely go out and supervise.
I think that the interpretation at the time, and this was probably 6 or 8 years ago, was that, the real estate inspector can supervise, but it probably shouldn't count towards the 25 inspections was the conversation, and it was just left at that, which I was okay.
Yeah.
Is there room on the report for 3 inspectors' names and license numbers?
You just keep adding them in. I've had 6. I know it's a software thing. Mine just wraps around. I haven't tried it on the new 7.6, but I think the intent was it just, whenever another name goes in, it just adds another line and pushes the preamble down.
Okay.
Depends on software.
Yeah.
On with clarification with Michael Malloy, do you think it's appropriate to have their names listed down below if you can't keep adding them on that same line off the cover sheet?
I mean, I think you can do in the same box. I mean, like just to widen that area. I mean, I've seen people's reports on the 7-6, 4 names, and it all fit on the same line. I mean, obviously some names are gonna be longer than others, but they couldn't. Sometimes they'll stack them. Yeah. As well. So it's hard to say because I don't know each software provider probably has a different formatting for that little area.
Because we usually put a list down below everybody that was there, even if they're just doing the termite inspection. So anyways, okay. Any comments or any other discussion? All right. Moving to item number 14, request for items for future agenda. I know we have the remote or distant learning that we're going to talk about next meeting. Anything else? Because our next meeting would be in April, so we're not going to bring up 535 in April. We'll bring it up in July.
No, well, why wouldn't we bring it up in April? We could, if we were to bring it up in April, we could recommend we can take 3 months basically to go and possibly create a list of stuff that we'd like to see looked at.
I thought that was going to cause a little bit of a problem opening it up early, Vanessa.
I think so. We wouldn't open it up. So it's gonna go out for proposal in August. So long as the language that you want to recommend is recommended by August, or technically you could do it after. It'd be better to do it before since we have time. So you could do it at the next meeting. You could do it at the July meeting.
Okay, cool.
We wouldn't have to actually,
you might
we
want
wouldn't have
both.
to actually propose anything. It's more of just, hey, if there's stuff we need to look at or we'd like staff to investigate more, what I'm saying is we take these next 3 months and kind of ourselves go through 535 and see if there's any little hot buttons that we think need to be.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. You can also, I mean, you have 6 months, so I think you could do it for both meetings as well, just to have a point of conversation about it.
Okay.
We will be putting those opened rules before you with edits, but yeah, you're right. It would be more helpful to know what you're thinking pre-proposal.
Okay. All right. So we got that, and
can I make a caveat to that? To any communications that happened based on that, send them individually and not to the full committee. I just don't want any conversations happening about anything.
Yeah.
So if you guys, I'm sorry, go ahead, Vanessa.
No, please.
I was going to say, if you guys have any suggestions and you want to send them to us, just send them to us. Don't send it to the whole committee. Send them to us. We'll compile everything and bring it forward for conversation when it's appropriate to do that.
Yeah, always. But I will say this: as we do a rule review, I think something like this is good. We're really trying to keep our rule review right now to be more sort of clarifying, making sure terminology is right, etc. We're not trying to do really substantive changes in this process. I'm not anti-substantive changes in general, but during quadrennial rule review, it's actually a lot cleaner to just kind of tinker with things, if you will. I think you guys know what that means. If there's other things we want to look at, or while you're going through 535, you're like, oh gosh, here's this thing that I've always wanted to change, like put it on there, and it may end up kicking down towards a further rule review depending on what it is, or it may make it in. I think this one we're talking about is, that there's certainly room for it here, but let's just keep that in mind.
We just got through a massive overhaul, 227 to 233. So hope there's not a whole lot of changes to that stuff.
all right. All right. So we got those 2 items. Anything else for next meeting? All right. All right. Discussion of possible dates for future meetings. So we have suggested date of April 18th at 10 a.m. Does that work for everybody? Got thumbs up. Steven, you good? You're muted. Just do it.
I'm checking my social calendar now.
April? Yeah. 18th. 18th. It's not a holiday. It's not.
It's tax day.
Easter Monday, tax day.
Wednesday, or is it tax day?
You guys always meet on tax day.
Yeah. I never do mine on time, so it doesn't matter.
Is that tax day?
Yep. That's a Monday after the. Wow, it's listed as tax day. I don't know why.
Friday, but Friday's the 15th. Isn't that the official tax day, right? It'd be Friday. Yeah.
I don't know why Google thinks it's Monday.
No, it's the 15th.
Yeah. So you guys won't be meeting unless you want.
I mean, who pays taxes anyway? So.
It's also the day after Easter.
Oh, the 18th is?
Easter Monday.
That may be a little bit more of an issue, but
yeah.
I'm good with the 18th.
I'm good. Anybody opposed to the 18th? All right, the 18th it is. Do we want us to decide on July 18th? Does that work for everybody?
I'm good with that one. Hopefully my voice will be recovered from that Niners-Cowboys game.
Oh, man, that was big, huh?
That was beautiful.
Oh,
you like that?
Oh, I love it.
Got to
Yeah.
remember where Lee's from.
Yeah, where's Lee from? I don't know that.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
a diehard Niner fan. Are you kidding me?
Nice.
Why aren't you living in like San Francisco? They got a whole street with tents and stuff ready.
Yeah, they have a lot of street with a lot of. Well, that's a whole different conversation.
That's happening all over Texas too. So, all right. So July 18th, good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, those are two. All right. Any other discussion on anything else? Okay, we'll adjourn this meeting at 11:13.
Wow. Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.